Hello again and welcome to my channel. This tutorial is part one of a new throw. This one's called Ashley's Jewel Mandala. You can work this design in any yarn of your choice as long as you use the right crochet hook size for the yarn that you're going to use. I've used, or I'm going to use again, double knit yarn with a 5mm hook. I've worked in quite bright colours because I did want it to look quite in keeping with the name, which is the Jewel. I'm going to start with a slip knot onto the hook, and we're going to work 4 chain. 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then I'm going to join with a slip stitch into that first chain, and that's going to form a ring. So row 1 is into the ring, working 12 double crochets. As always, for the first row I'm going to work 3 chain. That will count as the first stitch. So there we've got 1, and then into that ring again, yarn over, pick up a loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. We'll just do the same into that same ring until we've got 12 doubles. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. I'll just make sure that I've got 12 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we're just going to join into the top of the 3 chain that we started this round with. I'm going to snip off the yarn and fasten off. You want to pull the tail of the yarn tight before you work it in, just to close off that circle. I'm going to carry on with a yellow yarn, and I've joined with a slip knot onto the hook. We're now going to work a double crochet and a front post double around every stitch. So we'll start off with a double into any of the stitches. I'm working with a standing double here, and then we do a front post double around that same stitch, and then straight into the next stitch we're going to work a double, and then we're going to work a front post double around that same stitch. I'm going to work the same again into the next stitch, a double, and then around that same stem of the stitch we work a front post double. If you notice as well, I'm catching the tail end of the yarn into the stitches as I'm going along, just to save having to do more working in at the end. So a front post double around the stem, a double into the top of the stitch, and a front post double around the stem. So at the end of this round we will have 24 stitches. Just work that last double and then the final front post double around the stitch. At the end of every row we will just join with a slip stitch into the first stitch of each row. If you prefer not to work a front post stitch to start a row, you can quite easily start with chains. So if you're working a half double, you would do 2 chain. For a double it would be 3 chain. For a treble you would work 4 chains. But I do think we get a neater finish if we start each row with a standing stitch. And on to row 3. Again I'm going to slip knot the yarn onto the hook, and on this row we're going to work a front post double around the front post stitches and a double into the top of the regular double stitches. So I'm going to start in one of the doubles with a standing double, and then work a front post around the front post stitch, and then a double into the top of that double there. Just zoom out a little bit, and then a front post double around the next stitch. Be careful that you're not doing the front post double around the double that you've just worked in, because at the end of this row we still want to have 24 stitches. It's just a double followed by a front post double. If you want to pause the video here and work all the way round, working alternate, a double in the double and a front post double in each of the front post stitches, and I'll meet you when we get to the end of this row. And on to row 4. I'm using purple for this row. We can start in any of the stitches, but we're going to any of the doubles, sorry, and we're going to work 2 doubles into any of the double stitches here. We're going to work 2 doubles into that one stitch, and then we're going to work a front post double around the front post double, and then into the next stitch, which is the double, we're going to work 2 doubles, and then a front post around that next double, 2 doubles into the double, and a front post double around the front post. Two doubles into the double, and then a front post double around that front post double. So that's the pattern repeat for this row. If you want to, again, pause the video and work all the way around. The last stitch that you do will be a front post double around this stitch here, and then again we're just going to join into that first stitch with a slip stitch, and I'll meet you when we get there. As we get round to the end and join with the slip stitch, we should now have 36 stitches altogether for this round. It might feel as if it's sort of frilling up a little bit or turning inwards, but don't worry, because it will sort itself out as we go further along. So for the next stitch, again, the next row, I'm going to join with a slip knot onto the hook. I'm using a bright blue for this row. So we're now going to work in any of the front post doubles. So I'll start on this particular one here, and we're going to work a 3 double crochet cluster, a chain 1 and a 3 double crochet cluster into that same stitch. So I'm going to start with a standing double, we only pull the loop through once, leave 2 loops on the hook, yarn over into the stitch, pick up a loop, yarn over. We've now got 3 loops on the hook, yarn over into the stitch, pick up a loop, yarn over through 2. We've now got 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 4. We're then going to work a chain 1. We're going to do exactly the same again, all into this first front post double. So we've now got 2 3 double crochet clusters with a chain 1 in between into that front post double stitch there. We're going to skip 2 stitches. We're going to work into the next front post double, and we're going to do exactly the same. A cluster, a chain, and then the second 3 double crochet cluster. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, which are the 2 doubles. We're going to do the same again into the next front post, a 3 double crochet cluster, a chain 1 and a second 3 double crochet cluster into that same stitch, 2 and 3. Skip the 2 doubles and go straight into the next front post double and work the 3 double crochet cluster, chain 1 and 3 double crochet cluster. Oops, come out of that stitch. There's 1 and oops, 2 and 3. So again, if you want to pause the video and work this pattern repeat all the way around, and when we get round to the last front post double, we're going to work the 2 3 double crochet clusters with the chain 1 in between, and then join into that first cluster with a slip stitch, fasten off the yarn and pull through. So at the end of this round we'll have 12 of these 2 3 double crochet clusters. So we've got 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 of the clusters. So I'm going to start the next row with a deep pink, We're going to start in the chain 1 of any of these clusters. So we've got the 3 double crochet cluster there, and we've got the chain 1 in between that cluster. We're going to work 5 double crochets into that chain 1 space. So I'll start with a standing double, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're now going to skip the second half of the cluster. We're going to do a single in the space between the 2 cluster sets. So we've got the 5 double crochet cluster there, and then 1 single in the space between the cluster sets. We go straight then into the 1 chain space between those clusters, and again we're going to work 5 doubles. And then we've got 4, and the last one is 5, and then into the space between the clusters we're going to do a single crochet, and then straight over into the next chain 1 space and work the 5 doubles. Single in between the clusters and 5 doubles into that next chain 1 space. So again, this is the pattern repeat: 5 doubles in the chain 1 space, and then a single into the space between the 2 cluster sets. So again, if you want to pause the video at this point and work your shells and singles all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. When we've gone all the way around, we've worked the last 5 doubles, we will do the very last single into the space and then just join with a slip stitch into the first double of that shell. So we can fasten off and pull the yarn through. So at this point you should now have a quite flat blanket. It should have flattened itself out. So for the next row, we're going to start in the second cluster of any set, and we're working from not this row that we've just done, we're working into this row below. So we're going to work a front post double around this cluster here. So just in case you're not familiar with a front post double around, we're going behind the stitch to pick up the loop. So we've worked a front post around the cluster from row 5. We're going to work a back post single around each of the doubles of the shell. We need to do a front post around this first cluster. So we've got 2 front post doubles here around the 2 cluster sets there. We're now going to work a back post single, so from behind the stitch we pick up the loop, yarn over and pull through 2. We're going to do a back post single around each of the doubles in the shell. So we've got 5 back post singles there, one round each of those doubles, and then we're going to work a front post cluster around, a front post double around the cluster, and again a front post double around the cluster, and then back to the back post singles around each of these doubles, and there should be 5. And then we're back to the front post double around the cluster, a front post double around the next cluster from row 5, and then we're back to row 6 working a front post, a back post single, just move that yarn, around each of those 5 doubles. So you can see the way the pattern's going there. Just take that slightly back. That we've got the 2 clusters of each of these cluster sets have all got the front post double stitch around them, and the shells in between have got the back post singles. So I'll just work that one more time. We've got a front post double around the cluster, a front post double around the next cluster, and then we've got the back post singles, oops, around the doubles from these 5 doubles that formed the shell. Again, if you want to pause the video at this point and work your stitches all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get to the end of this row. And when we reach the last single back post single of the last shell, we're just going to join into that first front post double with a slip stitch. We can fasten off and pull the yarn through. Just pull that thread through to the back there that's sitting at the front. There we go. So for the next row I'm going to use the purple yarn again. So slip knot onto the hook, and we're going to work starting into this any of the shells, but it's the first single of the 5 singles that we've got here, the back post singles. We're just going to work 1 double into each of those 5 singles there. So we've got 1 double in each stitch. The next stitch we're going to do a front post double around both of the front post doubles from the last row. So yarn over, go behind both of those front post doubles, we're going to work a front post double 2 together here, so we're actually working 1 stitch where we'd got the 2. So we do 5 doubles, 1 in each of the 5 back post singles. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, I've not caught that first one, just bear with me. You have to be a little bit careful after this double 2 together that we get that first single there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then again we're going to work a front post double around both of the front post doubles from the last row. So go behind both stitches to pick up the loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and again be careful because this first single is a little bit hidden behind the 2 front post doubles there. So we do 5 doubles across the next 5, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then a front post double around the 2 front post doubles, and then back to the 5. Just push that stitch over slightly so that you can get that first double into the first stitch there. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then work the front post double around the 2 front post doubles from that previous row. So that's the pattern repeat, that we work 5 doubles across the 5 back post singles, and then we work a front post double around both of the front post doubles from the previous row. So again, if you want to pause the video, feel free to do so. I'll just mention that the finished blanket weighs around about 800 to 900 grams, so if you're wanting to plan a colour theme or wondering how many balls of yarn you're going to need, you're going to need around about 900 grams, I would say, to complete the blanket. And this one, when I did the first sample that I worked up, measures around about 55 inches square. But you can use any colour theme, you can use it as a scrap blanket, working each row in a different colour and using it whatever part balls or single balls that you've got left from other projects. So I'll let you carry on your doubles and front post doubles, and I'll meet you when we get to the end of this round. And on to row 9, row 9. We can start in any stitch anywhere around the circle. We're going to work a back post double into every stitch. So the first one that I'm going to do will be a standing back post double. For this round I'm using a pale lilac, so it's a nice easy row. Just working a back post double into each stitch all the way around. So again, rather than just watching me work back post doubles, if you want to pause the video and I'll meet you when we get to the end. Again, we'll join with a slip stitch into that first stitch before we fasten off and pull the yarn through. At the end of this row you will have 72 stitches. We're now going to increase on this row, so we need to start in a stitch that's above a front post stitch from this purple row here. So where we've got that front post stitch that went around the two front post stitches, we're starting in this stitch that's worked into that front post stitch there. We're going to work 2 double crochets into this stitch. So we've got 1 and 2, and then we're going to work 5 doubles over the next 5 stitches. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. We're going to work 2 doubles into the next stitch, and this again will line up with the front post double that went around the 2 front post doubles there. So we work 2 doubles into that stitch. So we're going to work 5 stitches over the next 5, and then again we're at the front post double that went around the 2. We're going to do 2 doubles into that stitch. So again, this forms the pattern repeat that we're working 5 doubles over the next 5 stitches. And then we'll work 2 doubles into the next stitch. And then again the 5 doubles. And then 2 doubles into the next stitch. So if you want to pause the video at this point and work all the way around 5 doubles in the next 5 stitches and then 2 doubles in the same stitch, and all of the 2 doubles will form into the stitch that's above the front post double that we did over the 2 stitches there. So I'll see you when we get to the end of this round. The last stitches that you'll do on this round are the 5 doubles, and then we come back to where we started with the 2 doubles in the 1 stitch. So we just join into the top of that stitch, fasten off the yarn and pull through. So the next row, which is row 11, I'm going to work in a pale rust shade, stitch onto the hook. So for this next round we can start in any stitch at all. We're going to work a 2 double crochet cluster, which is similar to the 3 double crochet clusters that we did back here, but rather than having the 3 doubles into one, we're just going to have 2. So to start the stitch, we're just going to any stitch, pick up a loop, pull through, yarn over through 2, but we don't do the yarn over through 2 again. Yarn over into the stitch again, pick up a loop, yarn over through 2. We've got 3 loops on the hook. We're going to pull through all 3 together, chain 1. We're going to do the same again into that stitch. So we've got another 2 double crochet cluster. We're going to skip 2 stitches and we're going to do the same again into the next stitch. So we've got 2 double crochet cluster, a chain 1 and 2 double crochet clusters. A 2 double crochet cluster. So we've got, I'll just do that one again. We've done 2 double crochet cluster, chain 1 and then the second 2 double crochet cluster. Skip 2 stitches and work 2 double crochet cluster, chain 1 and 2 double crochet cluster into the next stitch. Skip 2 stitches and we do exactly the same again. So we're going to work this all the way around, working 2 double crochet cluster, chain 1, 2 double crochet cluster, all into the same stitch. We're going to skip 2 stitches and then work 2 double crochet cluster, skip 2 double crochet cluster, chain 1 and a 2 double crochet cluster. So we just work all the way around this row exactly the same. Skip 2 stitches and work the next cluster set into the next stitch. Skip 2 stitches and the next 2 double crochet set into the next one. So if you want to pause the video and carry on working all the way around, and then when we get to this last stitch here, we're just going to join again with a slip stitch into that first cluster that we started with, and I'll see you when we get to the end. As we get round to this last double 2 together cluster, chain 1, double 2 together cluster. We've got 2 stitches left, which are the 2 that we skip, and join onto excuse me, that first stitch. So at the end of this row we should have 28 2 double crochet clusters with a chain 1 in between. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 and 28. So the next row we're just going to repeat row 6. I'm using another of the purples that I'd got in my yarn stash, and we start again with a slip knot onto the hook. So again we're going to start in any of these 2 double 2 together clusters. We've got a chain 1 in between and we're going to work 5 doubles into that chain space. And then into the space between the two cluster sets we do a single, and then on to the next chain space, and we're going to work 5 doubles, and a single in between, straight onto the next chain 1 space and work 5 doubles, and then a single into that space between the two cluster sets. So again, if you want to pause the video and work around working, oops, I'll just start that one again, working the 5 doubles into the chain 1 space that sits between the two double 2 together clusters, and then a single crochet in between the two. So if you want to carry on with that pattern repeat, working a shell of 5 doubles into the chain 1 space, a single, and then a shell of 5 doubles into that next chain 1 space. When we get round to the end of this round, we'll do the single into this space here, and we'll just join into this first double of the shell with a slip stitch, and we can fasten off the yarn. I've now fastened off the yarn, and we've come to the end of part 1 of this design. You should have 28 of these shells going all the way around. There is a written pattern. I'll pop a link to that under the video for anybody who prefers a written pattern or who wants the written pattern to follow. I hope you've enjoyed part 1. I hope that you'll join me again for part 2. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.